Welcome back. This is our sixth in our installment of our devotion series geared toward teens and young adults in the Spirit Life Ministries. My name is Jennifer Elrod. I'm the youth pastor at Honey Path Pentecostal Holiness Church. And this is
Marissa, and I'm a current student at Emmanuel College.
You heard that, current. We got her there. All right, today's devotion, we are glad to be back. It took us about a month to get things rolling with school, but today we're going to be talking about...
You have hit a wall.
Hit a wall. So are we talking about emotionally, spiritually, physically?
Well, I mean, I've run into some walls physically, but spiritual walls hurt more than physical walls.
The pain lasts a lot longer, too.
Oh, yeah, so do the consequences. If you've ever watched Cars 3, which I'm sure most of you out there have.
We're Disney fans.
At least I hope you have. It's kind of old now. There's this scene in Cars 3 where Lightning McQueen is trying out this new simulator and his coach tells him, Mr. McQueen, you're not ready. Don't go on the simulator. You're going to get hurt. What does he do? He goes against his coach's
disobedience, you mean?
Yes, actually. That's exactly what the definition of disobedience is. Direct, willful disobedience basically is the refusal to follow instructions. The willful refusal to follow instructions. So Mr. McQueen disobeys his instructor, gets on the simulator, and the little simulator, you know that voice like a GPS, it keeps telling him, you have hit a wall. You have hit a wall. At one point it says you have set EMS on fire.
And yet he just keeps...
And he basically keeps hitting the wall until he literally spirals out of control and hits the simulator head on and breaks it.
The whole thing gets destroyed. So when he starts out just randomly kind of going too fast, hitting this wall,
he like blows the whole thing up because of willful disobedience.
And thankfully he was on a simulator. Because
at least
a simulator is not exactly real life.
Yeah, that EMT guy on fire wasn't actually real.
Show us what he did the last time. Go ahead. Come on.
This is what happened the last time.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what happened the last one.
Yeah. The end of Lightning McQueen as we know it.
But there is an example of how Mr. McQueen hit the wall in the simulator in the Bible.
So it really happened.
Oh, it did just happen once though. And it wasn't on a simulator. Yes. Again. And we'll just keep flashing that word up for all 21 chapters of Judges. But the Israelites, basically they were given a command in Judges 2 not to worship any other gods. I wonder what they did.
We have a couple little Israelites here. Boom!
Splat.
Yes.
I mean, there were several thousand that did go splat later
for disobedience.
But basically, their disobedience provoked the Lord to anger.
Incitement.
Level 10. Not just, well, I'm going to send you into captivity for a few years. Oh no.
Not no. 350 years.
To be exact.
Yes.
350 years of you have hit the wall.
So throw a couple more of these little guys.
Just throw the whole stack.
Throw all the
Throw the whole stack.
Because this 350 years, it was 7 times of willfully turning away from God. 7 times that they ended up in bondage, and then 7 times that God had to go and deliver them.
Right.
But yet over and over, they just kept doing it again and again and again. That word really started to bother us in our studies, though.
Again, they disobeyed the Lord.
How many times do we do that? Do we hear him say, you've already been down this road one time, and now you've gone down this same road again. Hit this same wall again. A lot of times it's still the same sin that we keep running into. But what we don't realize is the more that we hit it, the more damage we're doing. I mean, really, we're destroying our core again and again and again for him to have to come in and redeem us. You know, this is actually a marathon word. We just went to see Overcomer. And great movie, but we wonder why anybody would want to run like 3.5 miles. Sorry, all you cross-country people out there, but just looks like
not for me.
Pain. Yes. But anyway, it's actually what they call a crossover point when they hit the wall, when their bodies have just been depleted of everything that they need to have the endurance to keep going. And if you think about these Israelites, same way. They felt like they had nothing else because they were living in so much disobedience. They couldn't live in his presence and in the overflow. So they had nothing else to keep helping them go. And it's funny because if you look up what happens to the runners, they get weakness and blurred vision. And you know, if you can't see, you're definitely going to run into a wall. Again. So there's so many times that, yes, it might be mistakes the first time, but it's kind of like what we talked about with temptation. You keep hitting it.
It's now a choice.
Yes, and you're hitting it harder and harder and harder.
Right. And probably not getting any better in between the times you hit.
Probably not. Because what we look like when we're running into the same wall over and over is a little insane. And if you look up, we've always heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and just getting the same result.
But expecting a different one.
Yeah. But we're also getting damaged more and more times that we succumb to this sin and this temptation. So there's other ways, though, that we hit the walls as Christians.
Ooh, see, here are just a few. And there's probably a list you could probably find on Google somewhere with a bunch more examples. But I'm just going to mention a few. You were disobedient. Again. So you're going to hear the words, you have hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You willfully chose to listen to someone's voice that wasn't God's. You hit the wall.
Again.
I mean, come on. How many times are you going to hit that wall? You put someone or something before God. You have hit the wall.
Again.
You forgot the Lord just like the Israelites did.
Blurred vision.
You hit the wall. Again. They just kept hitting the wall and hitting the wall and hitting the wall.
And they don't realize that when you do it, I've been to some demolition derbies. You have not, right?
No.
Well, I've seen these cars like smash into each other. And the more that you hit, the more vulnerable you become. To the point where you feel like you can't go on. And the action of just cramming into the wall becomes more familiar than backing up and going another route and trying to find your way around the wall instead of just hitting the wall. It's just easier to hit and take the damage each time. So as odd as kind of the connection seemed, we've got Lightning McQueen, we've got some marathon runners, we've got some Israelites. They're all still hitting a wall in the spiritual sense.
Right.
Maybe even marathon runners in the physical sense, but we wouldn't know because we don't run.
Yeah, we don't
But
run marathons.
I looked up some advice that they give for like really marathon runners when they hit this crossover point, when all you're doing is hitting the wall and you can't do anything else. And the first one is you should have stick to your planned pace. You know, they would have never, had they not wandered for so long to begin with, for 40 years, inheriting the promised land would have not been a big deal at all. But the disobedience became like second nature to them again and again and again. So in Galatians 5:7, it says you were running a good race. Who cut in on you to keep you from obeying the truth?
Ooh, that cuts
Who pushed you towards that wall? Or did you push yourself? Because you had a straight and narrow path that was laid out for you.
Did you turn your head to the left or the right?
When you were supposed to stay straight.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the next thing they tell marathon runners is you avoid surges. And if you've ever watched cars, you know Lightning McQueen, of course, the need for speed, a speed demon, right?
Yep.
But that comes from that impulsive side. That comes from that pride side. Some people, I think, just hit walls just to see if they can.
Maybe if I hit it enough times, I'll learn how to break through it.
Maybe so. But 2 Timothy 3:4 says you are to avoid treacherous, reckless. This is reckless driving that we've got going on here.
I mean, he did just fall.
But the Israelites, again and again and again, and many lives ended up being lost because of disobedience. You avoid treacherous, reckless, conceited, anything that is a lover of pleasure rather than a lover of God. So you have to avoid those surges. And then the last part of the marathon runner, it talked about that you had to stay hydrated because you've lost all of your endurance. And if any man is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. There shall flow springs of rivers of living water. You've got to be able to get around this wall in order to bask in his presence because we keep hitting it over and over again. Again, so what do you think we should do if we can't stop hitting the wall?
Well, maybe you should stay still for a little bit.
You mean maybe put it in park and get out of the car?
Yeah, assess damage maybe.
Maybe so. Walk around the car a couple of times and maybe 7 walls fall down with 7.
Yeah.
But just see how bad it really is. Because the first time you may not really look with a good eye. You might have that blurred vision. See exactly what you've done. How much have you destroyed the inner core of your being from continually hitting that wall over and over again? But you know what? Maybe somebody else should just start driving that car for you.
Oh yeah, maybe you should hand the keys over to God because you're not supposed to be driving anyway.
Oh, you're supposed to be sitting in the passenger seat.
Maybe he should just stick you in the trunk, you backseat driver.
Throw you in there and walk. Yeah.
I mean,
it's time for him to lead you, because if you're continually hitting the wall, you're doing that yourself. Selfish ambition, disobedience, pride. You're right. I don't even know that we need to be in the passenger seat. Let us just stay in the trunk for a while, so that he can definitely lead us and that we can hear his voice, because this is a bad place to be, especially if it's the same wall we're hitting over and over again.
And walls keep us from moving forward, because disobedience, it halts progress. It's basically like a dead engine. It's not getting you anywhere.
And it takes us back, and then we go forward, then back, then forward. But every time we go forward, when we're hitting the wall, it's sending us back even farther than we were before.
It's like 2 steps forward, about 5 steps backwards.
So this is definitely a dangerous place for a believer to be, and we've all been there, because it tends to be the same stuff that causes us to fall time and time again. The enemy knows what our weaknesses are. He knows what our vulnerabilities are. Once we've hit it one time, we are more likely to hit it again. So we really need to pray that not only are we not going to hit this wall anymore, that we are able to overcome and go around the wall.
And not hit it
again. And not look back like Lot's wife to see what we left behind. What does the wall look like now? Because I promise, if he was able to take us around it, he has also now crumbled it. We didn't have to break through it.
No, because he did.
All right, we're going to close in a word of prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for all these people who watch this video. And Lord, we pray that any of those who listen to this, if they're hitting a spiritual wall, Lord, that you would break it, that you would repair their car, and that you would set them on the path that you would have them to drive on. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, stay tuned for our next installment, and we will see you later.